Hey guys, this is Walter. I'm coming to you again with another video. Today, I wanted to go over some stuff that's been in the media recently in regard to the American justice system. I wanted to touch on a few points concerning Harrison Floyd and the recent Trump indictments that's been going on that we've been seeing over the past few months, as well as talk about some issues concerning political contributions, as well as bail and detentions. So I wanted to get started by saying that, everybody in this country ideally follows a set of rules and a set of laws in terms of how we behave, how we respect government, how we interact with the legal system in general. Most Americans never have to interact with a court system, thank God. Most people may deal with family court, maybe a ticket or two, but very few people ever deal with federal indictments or anything of that type of thing. So I wanted to begin the video by going over that. One of the first things I wanted to talk about, though, was the idea that um, American law is supposed to be equal justice for all. Everybody's equally protected, everybody is equally accountable, and everybody has to follow the same set of rules and stuff like that. That's generally been the case over the course of, you know, the past 400 years of American jurisprudence, but it's been something that's been called into question um, as recently as 2016, as we all know, when President Trump became president. He was a guy that really defied the odds in terms of government, how programs are run, how political contributions are handled, how political candidates behave on the campaign stage, um, how they interact with people that they hire, even their own constituents. And so it kind of allowed people to have a kind of drawback to what they thought in their head but would never speak on versus what they actually say in the public eye. Um, Everybody, we've all had various disagreements with government, with different laws and stuff like that, and we have managed to, come to a sense that, that is the way it is. You really can't do nothing about it. We elect our um, political officials based on a certain standard or certain resilience to the way that things are. However, as I said, when President Trump came into office, he certainly flipped that on its head, and it's become something that's um, not normal, to say the least. Um, to get started here, Harrison Floyd, he was one of the 19, co-conspirators that was trying to assist Trump with overturning the election back in 2020. Um, we all know the song and dance of that. Trump was unsuccessful in that regard. He wasn't able to do that. Obviously he lost to Joe Biden, and it's been a constant reiteration of, stop the steal, fake electors, all this kind of stuff like that. Um, Harrison Floyd, however, was one of the people that did try to, you know, hinder the process of democracy and the peaceful transfer of power. And unlike the other 18 or so co-defendants who turned themselves in the other day in Fulton County, Georgia, he was not released. Most of them were, they arranged a pre-bail at the jail. They had their attorneys negotiate the bail. They paid the bail up front, took their mugshot, fingerprint, saw some documents, and was let go. This guy in particular, Harrison Floyd, was not let go. He was, booked to arraigned. He didn't have a lawyer because he couldn't afford one. And when they ran his rap sheet, as they do for everybody when you turn yourself in, it came back that he had an active warrant for an assault charge from when he decided to attack a process server who is one of the people that the court sent out to basically serve you with your papers. So if you ever looked at Law and Order and you see when they say such and such, you're served and they hand you a white envelope and you're like, what's this? And that's your court papers summoning you to court. Well, he basically attacked the person that had the responsibility of doing that job. And as a result, charges were pressed against him and he had an active warrant out for his arrest. So when he went to go turn himself in to Fulton County on an unrelated matter pertaining to Trump and the fake elector scheme and all that kind of stuff like that, he was detained for that purpose. Ideally, that is not a reason to be detained. Usually he would have been let go like everybody else, but because he did not have a lawyer, he was not able to. Unfortunately, he was held and is still being held, pending, him being able to post bail or to hire an attorney who can negotiate a bail on his behalf, which would basically say that he will return to court for all future proceedings. I'm not aware of what his financial situation is at this time, and so as a result, he's saying that he basically can't afford a lawyer. So you know how it is with the law. They all want their money. The law is not free. You must pay, and if you can't pay, you will sit. And so basically, that's what he's doing right now. He's essentially sitting while he waits for a trial date. As of the making of this video, and today is August 26th, they believe they're having a trial date for October 23rd because a lot of the co-conspirators were saying that they would like a speedy trial. So, he would be sitting until at least that time, when his name is called and stuff like that. However, I do want to note that just because you get a speedy trial, just because, they may call him as a witness for something like that, that doesn't mean he's going to get released. He could still very well be detained, post that hearing. So I just wanted to bring him up because he's going to be like a focal point for the content of my videos, which is going to show the comparison between, American justice and then the justice that a lot of the poor experience, not just blacks or minorities, but people that's poor in general. I guess the proper term would be considered indigent, those that cannot afford an attorney. You will sit for things that may be considered relatively minor. So my hope for him is that, he would be able to, afford an attorney eventually at some point. He does have a funding page up where people donate money to his, legal defense. A lot of people in the media have been saying, well, how come, Trump don't donate money to get him a lawyer or something like that? But we all know that, Donald Trump don't do that. He don't volunteer assistance for anybody, especially people that he didn't know really all that well. And really for people, even that he knew that well. I mean, you look at what he did with Rudy Giuliani, you look at what he did with a lot of the other people that got charged, and, he just doesn't pay people's legal bills, let alone his own. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with Mr. Floyd and how all of that works out in the grand scheme of things. But I think it's important to know that, as I said at the beginning, that America is a system of laws and is one justice system, chiefly, that, should be followed. And so I just want to say that if you're going to go out there and contribute to other people's conspiracies, you best make sure that you got your own money to get you out of situations like this. I was just watching the news earlier today, and it came out that he had got a quote from one of the attorneys, and they were like, hey, we'll represent you, but we're going to need a retainer for $40,000 in order to do that. Now, for most people, that's going to be a pretty penny. I know for me it would be, but other people may have more money. I don't know, but that's quite a sizable amount of money to pay up front, in addition to the bail amount that he had to pay that he couldn't pay. So it'll be very interesting to see. The last I heard which was the recording of this video, he had raised about $5,000 that he had received in donations from people to go towards his legal defense. But when you need at least 40,000 just to get the case started on retainer, and he only got 5,000, it's like he got a long way to go. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out for him in the long run. It's something I'm going to watch pretty carefully, and in subsequent videos, I will provide updates as to what happened with him in this regard. That brings me here to my next point, which I wanted to discuss, which is political contributions. As you know, running for office is very expensive. People need millions and millions of dollars to run the ad campaigns, merchandise, travel expenses, all of that kind of stuff like that. And the worth of a political candidate is, chiefly based on how much they can raise. It doesn't matter really what their policy impacts are or are not. It's chiefly based on how much money they are able to fundraise. If you're not familiar with political campaigns and the way they are, think of the amount of fundraising that you do as being like a measure of your worth as a candidate. So the more people trust what you say, the more they believe what you say, the more they can resonate with your political ideology, life philosophy, religion, all that kind of stuff like that, the more they're going to donate to you on a regular basis. So you may have received, all those phone calls and emails in your spam folder talking about, hey, donate $25, $5, this, that, the third. And you'll get it from a bunch of people. I've received, quite a good amount of those on my own, from Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Obama, Omarosa, Kamala Harris, Doug Emhoff, all of those people on a regular basis, to the point where I had to click, at the end of the email, like unsubscribe, like stop sending me all of these things because it get to be a bit much. So I'm like, come on, nobody wants all of that. But anyway, so that's like a general overview of the political contributions. In regard to this video of American justice, it's quite unprecedented to see a political candidate that's been indicted 4 times as of the making of this video continue to receive, substantial political donations in regards to that. I started out the video talking about how, historically, we all follow a set of principles as American citizens, and it seems like that's been flipped on its head. And there's no place where that's more evident than here in these political contributions, especially ones that Donald Trump has been receiving. You would have thought that out of all the stuff that occurred throughout his 4 years in office, culminating with the January 6th riots on the Capitol, the E. Jean Carroll case that he was found guilty of, you look at the stuff that happened with his wife, you look at all the other controversies that he had, you would have thought that historically, from a historical standpoint, that he wouldn't have continued to get those political donations, but that just has not been the case. And so it looks like that he's, no matter what ills he faces on a daily basis, he's still going to get those political contributions. If you think back to when he was campaigning in 2016, when he said, I could literally stand on Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and I wouldn't lose any votes, we all thought at the time that was hyperbole, because clearly you can't shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. But he said that, and so we thought it was hyperbole. But we had no idea that, a few years later, the reality of that would come true. When you get political contributions, the law is very clear on what you can spend that money on. It's very clear on a few things: what you can spend the money on, who you can get the money from, how much an individual can donate to a political campaign, and what you can use those campaigns funds for. The common theme of this first video is that he's flipped that on his head. So He gets contributions from everybody, and we already know who those people are. He uses the funds for purposes other than what they're intended for. Um, and that's, you know, in my view, going to be a problem for him going forward. People talk about ethics violations, ethics laws, and stuff like that. That's going to become an issue going forward. I think right now we're all kind of like in like the fog of war when it comes to the Trump era. And I say the Trump era, not necessarily referring to his presidency, but the Trump era and referring to everything that's happened since we heard of him and took him seriously as a political candidate. So you're talking about from at least 2015 up until today. Nobody never thought that, he would have made it that far in terms of being president. Nobody thought he was serious about running for office. And then when he finally did, people said, oh shit, like, look at this guy. He actually is going to run. And then, we went through the gamut of, well, he's going to run, but he can't possibly win, right? And we were like, ah. And then it turns out he won. So, and we had to all deal with that. But in regards to political contributions, it seems that no matter what happens with him, people are still willing to donate ferociously. We got to fly in here, excuse me. People are still willing to donate ferociously to his campaign, alleged campaign, or to him personally. And he's using that money deliberately to pay for his legal fees. And that's not something that you typically see. You typically see when people get donations, they'll use it for the campaign, for the trips, all that kind of stuff like that. But he's using that for the indictments and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this plays out in terms of like the ethics law, in terms of campaign finance law, in terms of how all of that kind of floats itself. Like I said, once the Trump era is over, I think it's going to be sweeping changes. I think they're going to make changes to the law because, currently, in the Constitution, if a person is indicted and convicted of a crime, there's nothing that bars them from running again. If a person is incarcerated, there's nothing that bars them from running again. So it'll be interesting to see how the laws change in this social movement of Trump. Once the dust settles and whatever happens with him or whatever like that, it'll be very interesting to see. The last part that I want to talk about for this video, which is going to piggyback off of Harrison Floyd, as well as the political contributions that we talked about, is, this idea of bail, American bail. Different jurisdictions handle bail differently in the country. Some jurisdictions, you have to get a bail bondsman and get bailed out that way. Other jurisdictions, you have to go directly to the jail and, the precinct and get bailed out directly there. Some jurisdictions don't have any bail regulations at all. But I found it interesting here that when you look at these recent indictments that those 19 people were charged with, and the seriousness of those crimes in regard to the federal government, it was interesting to see how they were just granted bail. But like, you look at the fact that you have a lot of other low-level offenders. And when I say low level, I don't mean literally low level. I mean, and like unfederal crimes. Like, they're not like a federal crime. I'm talking about like your gun charges, your drug charges, sex assault, stuff like that. Those people, they don't always get bail. People say, well, it was his first offense. Okay. Well, I mean, he got impeached for similar things. So it's like, I don't know about that. You got 4 indictments in the past 5 months, and yet you were still granted bail. So I just kind of found that kind of odd. And when we're talking about the American justice system, and they say the cliche of American justice for all, everybody is under one system. It doesn't really seem that's the case here when you're looking at the era of Trump and the people that he have working on his behalf and stuff like that, his co-conspirators and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see. Um, if I was gonna, make a prediction about bail going forward, I would say that, um, as I say, everything that goes up must come down. Nothing lasts forever. So it'll be very interesting to see, this notion of bail and how that works and how that goes going forward. In particular, if you're looking at Trump and what he's done, yeah, he was given a bail, but he was also given a certain number of conditions to go along with that bail. And so it's like, well, if you violate, you know, the terms of your release, and for his case, in his case, if you remember, he's not allowed to threaten or intimidate anyone involved in the case. So not the judge, not the attorneys, not the witnesses, and we know that he doesn't do a good job of that. We know that he's very good at, um, threatening people, stuff like that. You look at what he did with Judge Chuckin, you know, tweeting out a picture of her face next to the baseball bat. You look at the witness intimidation that he did with others. And so it's like, it'll be very interesting to see. I think that it'll get to the point where he will be detained indefinitely, you know, especially if for whatever reason the hearing that they scheduled for October 3rd does not go through. So that'll be very interesting. Because he did ask for a speedy trial. And he's saying, well, we don't want it that early, but we'll see what happens. I think that, he's used to putting like a bunch of fluff out there and, people very much catering to him, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with Fonnie Willis as she just kind of goes with what he says so that way he can hang himself in the long run. So it'll be interesting to see. But I just believe that, bail isn't going to always be an option for him. I think that the tide is turning, in a slow direction towards the right way in terms of him having to go down there to Fulton County to that notorious jail to turn himself in, get mugshotted, fingerprinted, and all that kind of stuff like that. So, we'll see. But I think that, the good times are going to end. I think he's going to be held accountable for this. And I think that, if he's not held accountable, as a society, we're going to have a lot of questions to answer to future generations about, the realities of the justice system and the law and accountability and stuff like that. So we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. They're going to be, so that's all I got to say about that. In terms of the direction of the channel, we're going to continue to do more videos like this. We're going to go more in depth into a lot of the political ramifications, the legal implications, the social perspectives, and how it affects the country overall, as well as internationally. And we're going to be discussing the topics as they come. I'm going to try to put out at least one video a day to kind of like sum up what happened in that day, because it's, quite unusual that we go through so many developments on cases of this magnitude so soon. But again, in the era of Trump, things like that do happen, rather frequently. So, as things happen, I'll upload them and discuss them. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.